A 27 billion parameter model that scores 4 points off Claude on the coding benchmark. Everybody quotes now runs on a graphics card that launched in 2020. Free forever. Nobody rate limiting you, nobody repricing you, nobody quietly swapping the model out from under a project you're halfway through. Then a developer pointed that exact model at Claude Code, gave it a real program to build, and it couldn't read a file. Not slowly. It couldn't read a file. He changed one piece of software around it, kept the same model on the same card, and got a working program 3 times out of 3. So this stopped being a question about how smart the model is. It's a question about 3 other things, and every one of them costs you either money or an afternoon. By the end of this video, you'll know where the line is, what crossing it costs at 2026 prices, and whether you're one of the people who actually should. 3 things I'll hand you on the way. The one number that decides whether your build works, and it is not the 24 gigabytes everyone repeats, including me in the last video I made on this. The one setting most people leave wrong, which turns a decent model into one that writes a division operator that multiplies. And at the end, the version of this where you buy no hardware and pay nothing, because that option did not exist a year ago, and it does now. Start with why anyone sane is considering this. Running a model on your own machine used to be for hobbyists and the privacy obsessed. That changed in June. A government order went out, and within hours, 2 of the most capable models on the planet were switched off for every customer on Earth. No notice. You could be mid-project, paid up in full, and the tool your whole week was built around was just gone for reasons that had nothing to do with you. That sits on top of what you already live with. Models get retired on someone else's schedule. Prices move. The version you trusted gets replaced by one that behaves differently, and nobody tells you which parts changed. It's a landlord who changes the locks whenever they feel like it, which is why people started looking at the box already sitting under their desk. So can the box actually do the work? Forget benchmarks for a second, because there's a better test, and you already run it without noticing. Do you still feel the need to double-check its output against the cloud model? For a lot of developers this year, that answer flipped to no. And what flipped it wasn't raw intelligence. It was tool calling. A coding agent is only worth something if it reliably reads your files, runs your tests, and edits the right lines. Older small models faked all of it. They'd cheerfully describe code they had never opened. Somewhere around the 27 to 35 billion parameter mark that got dependable, and a model on your desk could finally behave like an agent instead of a chatbot. That's the line. Now here's what it actually feels like to stand on it. Good enough carries an asterisk, and the asterisk is time. Local holds its own on bounded work. Autocomplete, quick code questions, refactoring a module, writing tests, well-specified edits. Hand it a big multi-file job and let it drive itself, and it still loses to the frontier badly. Here's the sharpest version of that I've seen. Gary Sims gave both a real task, an interpreter for a small language from a README. Codex with a frontier model finished in 6 minutes, fully functional, tests passing. The local models got there too, all 3 of them, but it took hours per stage, and he was leaving it running overnight and reprompting it in the morning. Same destination. One took a coffee break, the other took a weekend. A strong local model is a sharp junior who knows a bit of everything but needs steering, and the frontier is the senior who thinks through architecture with you. If the senior gets you a 15x speedup, the junior gets you 5. On free hardware you already own, 5 is still absurd. Now the catch, and this is the number I promised you. Crossing this line is not a download. It's a hardware purchase, and memory decides nearly everything. The model has to fit entirely in fast memory. The GPU can reach, or it crawls. Budget about half a gigabyte per billion parameters at the compression people actually run. So a 32 billion model wants roughly 20 gigabytes just to sit there before it reads 1 line of your code. That's where 24 gigabytes of VRAM comes from, and that's the number I gave you last time. It's the wrong number. It's right for holding the model and wrong for holding the work. Because your context rents space from the same pool, and a coding agent's context is enormous. One developer measured his own machine mid-session, about 20 gigabytes of model weights, and at 75,000 tokens of context, he was sitting at 45 gigabytes of VRAM. 45. The scratchpad grew bigger than the model. So a 24 gig card doesn't hold a coding agent. It holds the model and almost nothing else, and that is why people watch a local agent crawl on a card that fits the model fine. The honest floor for agentic work is the model plus about another 25 gigabytes of headroom, which in practice means a 32 gig card or a Mac with 48 to 64 gigs of unified memory. And watch the trap on the way. Those fast mixture of experts models only fire a few billion parameters per word, so people assume they're light. They're not. The whole thing still lives in memory at once. There's a quality dial too, and this is the setting I promised. Quantization, which is just how hard you squash the weights to make them fit. The old rule still holds. Run a smaller model at high quality over a big one crushed to fit. A sharp 27B beats a lobotomized 70B, but there's a new result that sharpens it. Gary's own earlier testing found Q4 and Q8 basically indistinguishable for text work, summaries, outlines, logic puzzles, under a coding harness that reversed completely. The Q8 model asked clarifying questions. Do you want this? How should I handle that? The Q4 versions asked nothing at all and just went. And the Q4 build had crash-grade memory bugs and never implemented the division operator, so division silently fell through to multiply. That review was run by ChatGPT rather than a human auditor or a test suite, so weigh it accordingly, but a missing division operator isn't a matter of taste. So for agent work, buy bits before you buy parameters. A 9 billion model at Q8 failed the same task outright, so there's a floor under that too. And the old comfort that hardware gets cheaper if you wait is running backwards. Memory is up about 500% in 12 months. A 128 gigabyte DDR5 kit runs $3,399, roughly 10 times the lowest price ever tracked for it. Mainstream 64 gig kits cost $1,000. DRAM is up 171% year over year, which means it outpaced gold, and Gartner expects memory around 130% higher by year end, dragging PC prices up 17%. Used 24 gig cards are appreciating like wine, a 3090 going from about $750 to $950, though that one's a single niche tracker, so hold it loosely. The cause isn't mysterious. Suppliers moved capacity to server memory for AI data centers. The AI build-out is what priced local AI out of reach, which is a hell of a thing to sit with. Say the hardware's sorted. Going from nothing installed to a model writing code in your editor is 3 pieces. And remember the developer from the opening, because the second piece is the one that decided his whole test. First, the engine, the program that loads the model file and does the math behind every word. llama.cpp is the common one, MLX on a Mac, and a Llama or LM Studio are friendlier wrappers on the same job. They run a small server on your machine, so everything else reaches the model at a local address, usually localhost port 11434. On its own, that's a brain in a jar. It can think and talk, and it cannot touch anything you own. Second, the harness, and most people have never heard of it. The harness gives the brain a body. When the model writes open this file or run the tests, the harness is the program that actually goes and does it, then feeds the result back so the model can decide its next move. Without one, the model describes what it would do. With one, it edits your code, runs it, watches it break, and tries again. Aider, OpenCode, Klein, those are harnesses. And that is the whole difference in the opening story. Claude Code and Codex are built expecting the frontier's flavor of tool calling. There's an open issue in Llama's own repository, not a blog post, reporting that Claude Code against a local Llama instance consistently fails during tool execution, entering plan mode or reading files, because the model generates invalid JSON for the tool. OpenCode assumes less about the model and survives. Third piece, the wiring, and it's the easy one. Every cloud coding tool you've used already talks to a model over a web address with an API key, so you change the address to your localhost and give it 64K of context rather than the default. Same plug, different socket. 2 warnings that save you a brutal first day. The one command on-ramps hide all of this, which is great for proving the thing runs at all, but the local community's complaint is real. They can hand you a smaller model than you thought you picked, or leave a lot of speed on the floor. Start easy. Graduate to the manual tools the moment the convenience hides something you need to see. And whatever you run, keep the agent in a sandbox, because one hallucinated delete command shouldn't be able to take your actual drive with it. So what do you actually get, and what do you hand over? What you get is control. The model can't be silently swapped, rate limited at the worst possible moment, deprecated, or switched off by a policy you never read. Your code never leaves the building, which for finance, healthcare, anything under an NDA is the only version a legal team will ever approve. It runs on a plane, in a basement, through an outage, and once the hardware's paid off, it costs electricity. What you give up is just as real. The hardest reasoning and the long, unsupervised jobs still belong to the frontier. A giant context is slower to chew on your machine, and you've quietly signed up for a second job as the person who fixes the driver at 11 at night. The skeptics land 2 clean hits on this, too. It isn't as democratic as it sounds, because the capability is free and the hardware is a wall, and just buy a 64 gig Mac is a punchline to anyone on a budget. And there's the reverse trap, where a weak model flops and you burn an hour wrestling something you'd have written yourself in 10 minutes. Mitchell Hashimoto made that case from a $5,000 machine. For the hardest work, local still isn't there. Which brings me to the third thing I promised, the version where you buy nothing. The old answer was hybrid, and hybrid was right. Let the frontier plan the messy thing, and let the local model grind the well-defined pieces. But hybrid used to mean one free tier and one expensive subscription. Since August 8th, QuenCode hands out 2,000 runs a day through a login, no token limit. OpenRouter gives up to 1,000 free API calls a day. Kimi K3 runs $3 per million tokens in and $15 out against Claude Opus at $5 and $25, and cached input drops to 30 cents, which is 90% off the exact part of an agent's bill that is most of the bill, because an agent rereads the same files all day. So there's a free middle rung now that didn't exist when I made the last video, and it changes the arithmetic hard. Do it out loud, a used 3,090 at $950 against a $20 a month plan is 47 months to break even. 4 years on a card from September 2020, before electricity and before 1 hour of your own time. Against a $100 plan, it's under 10 months, which is genuinely good. So whether local pays has almost nothing to do with which model you download and everything to do with which plan you're replacing. So is it you. If you already own a 32 gig card or a Mac with 48 plus, you spend most of your day on bounded work, and you like that nobody can touch your setup, build the local daily driver, pick the harness before you pick the model, run it at Q8, and keep a cheap cloud key for the hard 20%. If you mostly turn big agents loose on large code bases, or the hardware budget isn't there, or you'd rather not babysit your own infrastructure, then the free tiers plus one subsidized plan is still the rational call, and it's a better call this month than it was last year. Nobody needs to buy a graphics card to stop overpaying anymore. If this saved you a bad hardware purchase, subscribe, because that's the only thing this channel is selling. And one last thing worth sitting with. The reason a cloud plan feels like a steal is that someone else is currently eating the cost, and that arrangement ends on their terms and not yours. The model on the box under your desk can't be rug pulled, repriced, or retired out from under you. So rent the thinking and own the typing. The one on your desk isn't the smartest model you can get. It's the only one that can't be taken back.